Back to the state of our schools tonight as we continue to navigate this crazy and unprecedented year. Joining us tonight to help out with that is Gregory Brender, the Director of Children and Youth Services at United Neighborhood Houses, which is a policy and social change organization of New York City settlement houses. So he works to ensure access to high quality early childhood education and after school programs for New York's families. So a lot to help us out with. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Jessica. It's a real pleasure to be on.
Thank you. So, Gregory, I just wanted to obviously get to right off the bat, a lot of what parents are kind of watching this and thinking about tonight is, of course, those two schools in Brooklyn that are now dealing with positive cases from their staff members. And they literally just went back into the building yesterday. So I guess I just wanted to address with you, what are your concerns with that, literally after 24 hours of teachers getting back into the building?
Yeah, the community-based organizations that are part of United Neighborhood Houses have a lot of concerns about how to reopen safely. And to some extent, they've already started some of that reopening and have been modeling practices by working in the city's regional enrichment centers, which provided childcare to the families of essential workers going back to March, and in summer camps that practice social distancing. So we know that there's a lot of measures that need to be taken to ensure that schools are open safely. Some of them are to ensure that kids stay within a pod model, not just within a pod in the same school, but within a pod in the same classroom, so that you really limit very severely the number of children each child comes into contact with. You also need to make sure that this model extends not just to the classroom itself, but all the spaces they're in, whether in the bathroom, playgrounds, outside. We want to see that there's as much outdoor space as possible. And after school providers have been working to talk to DOT to get streets closed and get programs over to have more time outside. And we need to make sure that kids are only interacting with the same staff again and again. You don't have people floating in and out of classrooms because this virus spreads incredibly quickly, and we want to make sure that schools and after-school programs and childcare programs are absolutely safe for parents.
Yeah, and I did want to get to that because a big announcement was made yesterday by the mayor talking about childcare and kind of a new program that's going to be enacted, Learning Bridges. So this is going to provide free childcare for students in preschool through the 8th grade on the days that they're not in the classroom. 30,000 seats, the mayor says, will become available on September 21st. And then the plan is to expand that to 100,000 seats by December. And then the city will also, they say, will prioritize enrollment into the Learning Bridges program for families who have the greatest need, for essential workers, for homeless kids as well. So talking about that, I guess, how big is this, and is this going to be kind of realistic, having 30,000 seats ready to go by September 21st?
Learning Bridges is incredibly important, but I think it's really important to say there's a lot of unanswered questions about it. We've been convening providers, and there's a lot that we don't know, starting with, most importantly, the size of the classrooms, having as many as 15 children per classroom. In the city's regional enrichment centers, which had already operated, we operated with lower numbers. So there's a big concern about the number of children per classroom. We also want to make sure that all of these programs have the equipment, have the ventilation. Some of them will be taking place in new spaces that haven't previously been childcare. We need to make sure that those spaces have the ventilation and that the city provides the support to community-based organizations to ensure that these programs are safe. We also need to have universal testing for anyone who comes into contact with the children or with the staff members in these classrooms. It can't just be random. We need to ensure that there's at least temperature checks for every child coming into a program and every staff member, anyone who would have contact with the children or staff, because we know we're bringing kids together if they're coming into Learning Bridges, and they're so crucial to families who need them in order to go to work and have somewhere safe for their family, for their children. But they have to be done safely, and that is absolutely providers' highest priority.
For sure, and it seems testing really is that that really important piece that everyone thinks should be there and ready to go and in place, not kind of reacting to maybe a positive case after and then having to test everyone. So that's definitely, of course, if we're bringing our kids to a childcare center, that's something that you want to know is already in place and ready to go before kids do walk in. And when it comes to after-school programs, because we talk about getting kids back to school, back kind kind of engaged and that social interaction that also comes with after school programs where they're able to express themselves and really connect to others. So, how do we make sure, and I know you listed some of those things too, but, how are we making sure that kids are able to have that experience, that great after school experience during this pandemic?
That's a great question because learning doesn't stop when the school bell rings, and kids' development really requires that social interaction. And if that's always been true, and it's 10 times truer now, where kids have been stuck at home for months. So there has to be a lot to make sure that they're safe. And a key part of it is having them go into the same cohort of kids that they're learning with during the day. So if they're in school with one group of kids and only interacting with that group of kids, it needs to be with the same group of kids they're in after school with. We need to make sure to keep those circles small, and we need to make sure that there's proper ventilation, that there's proper space for social distancing, and that the community-based organizations, that the city provides them with the PPE that they need to ensure the safety of all the children and all of the staff.
Yeah, some big points there, Gregory. Thank you so much. And I know there's just so many questions, as you said, and addressed, that still need to be answered. We're less than 2 weeks away from kids heading back to school, as we saw Catholic students are back today. So still a lot of things, day by day that we're all kind of going through. So thank you so much for your insight on these really, really important topics. And I'm sure we're going to be back in touch as the days go on. Any last words for parents?
Just that, community-based organizations are being called to be a part of the system in a way we haven't before, and it's so important to make sure that the city knows it needs to support them. They need to be fully funded, and they need to have regulations that make sense and can be easily followed.
Gregory Brender, thanks so much for being with us here tonight on State of Our Schools.